Republicans vow that they will continue to probe into the president's son, and Hunter Biden's plea deal is expected to be a hot topic on the campaign trail for GOP candidates. So joining us now is Etienne and Leslie Sanchez. Ashley is a CBS News political contributor and former communications director for Vice President Harris and former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Leslie is a CBS News political analyst and Republican strategist, and it's always great to see you guys. Also, we know it's Friday when we see you, so that's good. We're going to start with you, Leslie. Republicans are not happy with this plea deal that Hunter Biden was able to hammer out. Why?
Republicans feel that this is just scratching the surface in terms of what they feel is broader corruption with the Bidens. And it's not just extended to the son. Many conservatives and Republicans will tell you they suspect that this is a very highly politicized Justice Department, that from the IRS whistleblower, that a lot of people were getting political favors and were given to the Bidens. And that at the top of the line, the president is not doing anything to discount these rumors and suspicions of politicalization. So I feel that they're churning this and will be turning this into political ads and keep up the heat going in through the election cycle.
So, Ashley, I guess from the Democrats' perspective, and I guess from just an overall perspective, if what Leslie is saying is true, then why haven't Republicans been able to bring the proof that is required for the prosecutors, the district, the attorney who's done this deal with Hunter Biden? Why haven't they been able to call that to his attention to say there's more here than perhaps you're aware of?
I mean, Vlad, that's like the $1 million question. That's before everyone. And I think the answer from the president's team is that it doesn't exist. And that's why you can't find it. It was Chairman Comer, who runs the Oversight Committee, during the Russia investigation that said if DOJ and Mueller couldn't find it and couldn't find anything nefarious on Donald Trump, then the committee needed to walk away from the investigation. From my perspective, the same, I think, is before him now. If Trump, who, again, I don't know anyone else in the country who wanted to find more dirt on Joe Biden than Donald Trump, if his DOJ could not find the evidence, and it likely doesn't exist. So to me, the question is before the committee, how much more, taxpayer money are we going to continue to throw at this investigation when there's likely not any evidence there?
Leslie, the Faith and Freedom Coalition gathering is happening right now. The chair, Ralph Reed, joined America Decides, and he weighed in on a federal level abortion ban. I want to play a little bit of what he had to say.
But 24 states have already acted. We believe that by the time we get to the presidential election in 24, that number is going to be 30 to 32 states. If we can get enough states acting, it will create a national consensus, and then we can act at the federal level.
So this is a gathering of religious folks, not necessarily evangelicals, but evangelicals, I think, hold a significant sway, if you will. Is this what Republicans, though, across the board want? Do they want to see a federal ban on abortion?
Oh, Anne-Marie, that's such a good question. These are two distinctly different things. When you're talking about Christian political activism, that in many ways is a big part, a part of the Republican effort, but they are not directly the Republican effort. And what I mean by that is going back to a well-worn playbook that goes back to 1992 in the Christian Coalition and building majorities on the state level to pass conservative and pro-life initiatives on the state level. And you're seeing a repeat of that today. It's an extremely effective and galvanizing political effort that now is not just focused on pro-life initiatives, they're taking on parent issues. So this coalition is raising a tremendous amount of money, highly effective on the state level. Is it going to get to the federal level and be kind of the notes that Republicans sing from broadly? It's hard to say. I wouldn't say that because it's an outside effort. But there are many strong pro-life Republicans who align with these efforts, and they cannot be discounted. And it would be foolish to minimize their political impact.
Ashley, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is, according to the poll we just saw, CBS poll and polls across the board, that this is an issue that really animates suburban women, independent voters, the Democratic base, and was a big factor in the midterm elections that really led to a small majority of Republicans winning the House, a small majority for Republicans winning the House. So this is a winning, I think the Democrats see this as a winning issue, and that they anticipate that this issue will continue to animate the base. Just this week, the DNC announced a big sort of six-figure buy in battleground states because it's unpopular among independents, and they will make the difference in those particular states. You saw this week where the vice president, even the first lady now is holding events on this issue, reproductive rights, and sort of the threats that the Republican Party and its agenda is going to impair on women and their right to choose. So this is an issue that not just the White House, but the Democratic Party is really going to lean in on, and they're going to make this a central theme for the 2024 election because they see it as a winning issue, and the polls bear it out.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Or just no, I think Ashley makes a really good point. You know, the Supreme Court decision coming out in June, and one thing we see and what we know historically with respect to how it affects women is you will see a lot more women putting their hat in the ring. You'll see a lot more women deciding to run for office, not only on the federal level, but on the state level, where it really can have an impact on these decisions. And I would argue that it's going to be both ways. You're going to have certainly pro-life women, but you'll have abortion rights individuals, and galvanize that group of women, the suburban voters, college-educated women in the middle. And we have yet to see the effect of that, and we won't know until the next election cycle. But it's something to definitely count on, I think, on both sides.
So former President Donald Trump recently released an ad labeling Ron DeSantis Lockdown Ron. He loves a good nickname, in response to the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. I got to ask you, Leslie, this seems really, to me, backwards looking. And I wonder if this is expected to be a hot topic among Republican primary debate within the Republican primary debates. If people are still kind of like relitigating how the pandemic was handled versus what are we doing for the next 4 years?
Right. It's a no-win strategy. And I think Governor DeSantis certainly wins that. He won overwhelmingly in his state for what he did in terms of getting the state working again. That is going to change. I will tell you, in talking to a lot of Republican voters, the Trump supporters are continuing to stay with him. And if anything, they're more emboldened. But you're starting to see Republican voters increasingly not want to see the former president at the top of the ticket. It's quiet rumblings. It's been around for a long time, but I'm starting to hear it. If you're looking at intensity, you're starting to hear it outside, and it's growing en masse because they just don't feel the president is going to have the appeal in the general election to cross the line, and they want a victory. So it's friction within the party, but you're certainly starting to see that soften in terms of people looking for an alternative.
Ashley, former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan told our Major Garrett that the DeSantis campaign is one of the worst. Those are his words, one of the worst he's seen so far. Is that a fair assessment? And this is kind of a weird question.
It's a vague term. Like, I wonder what did he mean by that?
Yeah, what did he mean by that? Because it just sort of seems very vague, as Anne-Marie says. And I'm just wondering where it's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone sort of agrees that the announcement was the most underwhelming presidential announcement I've seen in recent history. But I think and this sort of connects to the previous question, I think DeSantis really is taken Donald Trump's bait. And I think that's where he's losing traction. After he started to attack Trump, he went down in the polls by 6%. So it's actually probably not a winning strategy. What I would advise him to do is to really take the Kemp strategy, Governor Kemp, ignore Donald Trump and stay focused on the issues. And a recent CBS poll found that 96% of Republican primary voters want to not talk about Donald Trump. They don't want to talk about his legal issues. They don't want to talk about culture wars. What they want to talk about are the issues. And so DeSantis, and this is what the former governor was saying, DeSantis needs to focus on the issues and really get out of the mud with Donald Trump because it's not working for him.
Leslie, let me get your take on it too, because it seemed to me that he actually Ashley hasn't been talking very much about Donald Trump, though he does a bit. But he's kind of been leaning into, the bumper sticker slogans, this is Florida's where work goes to die, and all that sort of stuff. And to me, that seems like a challenging way to go forward.
Well, I think that's what Governor Hogan also said in that interview with Major, which is that his leaning into the culture war stuff.
Right.
It may work in Florida or it may work for his constituents, but across the country, nationally, is that going to have an appeal? Because you've got to run across the entire country.
Completely.
And where Florida is where woke goes to die. Great for Floridians, but what about the rest of the country?
So, Leslie, I want to ask you, obviously he's polling in second place behind the former president, so that's better than anyone else. What do you see in terms of DeSantis' campaign? What's he doing right and what's he doing wrong?
What he's doing wrong, I would argue, is not spending enough time talking about some of the other economic impacts that Florida had. His decisions made on the state level, getting kids back to school, getting businesses back open. The economics of that for working families is a strong message for Republican governors across the country. But again, it's a strategic playing field, right? You don't have to win all 50 states. You have to win strategically. We already know what states tend to be more Republican leaning. It's all those battleground states that really matter. And Ashley's talked about them in terms of galvanizing women. But what are we talking about in terms of parents' rights or education or inflation or those pocketbook issues? The governors that are doing that and the candidates, I would argue, that have announced that are doing that you're not seeing them uptick dramatically in the poll, but that's where Republicans want to be headed. That's the conversation they want to have. They're complete agreement that they're tired of talking about Trump and moving away from that. And if you look at, just adding this last point, Governor Christie has really gone on the offensive in terms of attacks early on and consistent against the former president. I think that he's serving a purpose and allowing the others to talk more about what their agenda would be.
All right, Leslie Sanchez, Ashley Etienne, always great to have you on Fridays. Thank you.